doesn't make it.
No.
Well, I thought it was in first, second, third, or fourth.
Well, no, but I mean,
They were the first to capture the market.
yeah, I mean, if you go way back, it was a while. So,
Well, I mean, so Creative Labs had theirs.
right,
And then
I had that
Logitech,
I think I had that one too.
and there was a whole bunch of others that had tried.
Oh, yeah, well, there's a whole bunch of.
Seagate had a couple.
Right,
And then finally, Apple was like, no, everybody, this is heck to it.
yeah.
That wheel, that mechanical wheel, everybody went crazy.
I know. That wheel was actually pretty interesting from a new product perspective, the concept and what is his name? The new knight of British Empire.
Paul McCartney.
No, the Apple employee,
Oh,
the designer.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
So he's the one who, let's see, KVE British Apple Sir. What's his name? Johnny Ive. Yeah, that's his name. Johnny Ive. So this guy is the original designer of that click wheel on iPods.
Oh, really?
And he is now a Sir.
Well, nice.
Sir Jonathan Paul Ive.
Also, they put a lot of time and effort into the little indentation in the glass. I wonder if he did that also.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's no doubt about it. He's the he's the designer, master designer in Apple.
So I bought my father-in-law one of those iPods with the wheel when it first came out, as a birthday present. And he still has it, and he still uses it, and he doesn't want to move to, he even took it to this one guy and had the battery replaced.
Nice. It is so nice to
He
touch.
didn't want to move. Yeah, he said, no, this works. It does exactly what I want it to do. I don't need any of those other applications. It plays my songs. That's what I want. He's just got kind of funny, so I'm like, okay, the Smithsonian's going to be calling for it soon.
Yes. So he's the guy who created the original designs for all these products, like this laptop that you have there,
Yeah.
all those. And so he discovered Mike? Did you find him?
Getting there.
Okay. Okay.
I have to. VPN after that.
Okay, I see.
So Mike is out, and who's the other one?
Matt is at the airport. Brian, I don't know. Brian should be coming.
Okay, so I can find it. Okay, it's on. You've heard of graphene?
Pretty smart material.
Yeah.
And it is this, the molecular structure is this.
Oh, Mike answered. I could try calling, I guess, at the next step.
Pure carbon in a thinnest possible form, 1 atom thick. That's graphene. So you can get some very interesting characteristics for the 100 times stronger than steel for a given weight.
You're talking about like screens as thick, just like thick bits of mylar.
Right.
There's some problems with it. It's a little bit over exuberant right now. There's a few problems with it. It doesn't act like transistor material. You can't get it to develop a gap and then
You layer it, right? One layer of graphene, another layer of whatever.
yeah, but it doesn't. They can overcome it, but it's not as simple as it's expensive to get it to work right. But it's early too, so.
Yep.
Has a lot of costs, so it's really cheap stuff to make it out of. It's just hard.
Right. So did you find him?
Found him, waiting for him to respond.
Okay, good. I think we should begin. So what we did today, or what we are going to do today, is to focus on storage services. We briefly discussed and used some of the make a phone call and make him join us. That'll be awesome. No worries, no worries. So in the previous classes, we have used a couple of different compute services, like this one. Or, for example, we use the DigitalOcean. These people provide the compute resources. That we used, and we created machines, and we looked at ports and examined all that, created some network configurations the way we'd like it to be. We'll do the homework by next week, which is not that complex now that we understand it. Now, having understood this, there are other things that are available from the infrastructure as a service, set of services, and another element of that is storage. So that's the focus today, is to look at a variety of storage providers. And here's a short list. I think most of us who have an iPhone have used this service already. They give you like 5 GB free or something, and then you use it. You have an iCloud account. Amazon gives you nothing for free, but pretty extensive offering at a very, very cheap price.
Did Apple just reduce their prices?
I think they did.
Because I just bought their 200 gig because it was so cheap. I didn't remember it being that cheap like a couple months ago.
Right, it was not cheap. They dropped the price because of a couple of things. One of them is that Google dropped their prices tremendously.
Okay.
So these guys dropped it. Then, of course, Microsoft came along and dropped the price. These prices are constantly falling, which is awesome for all of us, right? Beautiful. And so that is good. But the catch when you look at storage services is that, storage can be free, but free doesn't mean good, or doesn't necessarily mean good. And which is, we have to worry about another thing, which is performance. And then we have to worry about programmability. And we have to worry about, reach to the end user. All these things matter. And so the key is to identify whether you put an item in the storage, whatever you have, how easy can your users access it? How quickly can they access it? Can they access it programmatically? Can we put some policy around it? Can we put some rules and use some kind of an API to access those things? So if we go back to this list, and let's segregate these into focused on developer versus consumer, right? So I would go like this and divide it in form of, these guys are more focused towards developers, and these guys are more like consumer-based storage. Right? Would you agree? Or did I misclassify? Probably Microsoft, I don't know how to classify them properly, but probably I would say this, something like that. Do you understand the difference between a consumer-based storage service and a developer-based service? So since most of us already have used some form of consumer-based services, like, you have these things called the Dropbox, right? You click on the Dropbox application, and then it is syncing up something and all that. So it goes on. There is a web-based, browser-based location where you can go and see what do you have. And sometimes they give you a local storage application that will synchronize with your web-based interface and provide you multiple machines. You can all synchronize through the Dropbox application. That's one example. Then we have the other one, which is for the class. Everybody who has a class account also gets a Cloud Genius email address, which gives each one of you, kind of crazy, but unlimited storage. You realize that, do you?
No.
Now you do. So the idea is that you, through this class, have access to unlimited storage. And here is how you can access it. You log on to the Cloud Genius account and read that. Everyone at Cloud Genius can use unlimited storage, period. Like, how do you compete with this? Not possible, right? No Dropbox, no Box, no nothing can compete with this.
Right.
And this is free to you. You have it. I'm using it. A couple terabytes, right? So the idea is that this is a consumer service. If you look at our storage in Google Drive, let's see, Google Drive, and if you remember, the way you downloaded your VirtualBox was actually like this. If you recall this, it was like this. Do you recall this downloading from here? And if you now look at the link to download and try to make some sense out of that link, what is this link? It is HTTPS protocol, great. It's going to a domain called google.com, awesome. And then what I call this thing as a tenant. I'm a tenant on their service. So I have a tenant ID, my domain there. And then the object ID. So this is the object that I have put in Google Drive. And this is the URL. I'm splitting here on the URL itself. And so that ID is corresponding to the trusty virtual machine that all of you downloaded, right, from Google Drive. Now, if you look at this link, it is not a clean link in form of what I would like to have in a programmable storage. If you look at programmable storage, let's see, compare that with something like, if you take that same link that I have here, the same link, and try to do a wget. You familiar with wget or something like this command? which basically downloads something,
Right.
right? wget is a, now if you try to give this to wget, something happened. And what got downloaded was the page containing the link itself. This is not what I want.
Right.
I want to actually download that thing, the object itself. So I cannot get a direct link to the object itself. That is not what a developer would like to have. Right? I did download something, and what it did was this HTML page.
Right.
But I don't want the page, I want the object. And that is one way to look at from a difference perspective between consumer-based storage versus developer-focused storage. Now let us look at the same thing, but this time a similar object that I have in line number 12, Amazon S3. I also have another virtual machine probably sitting there in Amazon, and let's see how that looks. So I'll go to Amazon, go to S3, and look at one of my places where I have stored stuff. And let us see if we can access one of these items that I have stored. So in, let's say, this location, what do we have? I have a bunch of things here. So let's pick one. Okay, what do I want to pick? Let's take this link. And I'm going to copy that link. I'll go to properties and examine the link itself. And here it gives me a clean link. Now let us take that clean link and dissect it in our notepad. So we have the HTTPS protocol, a domain that is pointing to Amazon Web Services. Then we have what I call, what Amazon calls bucket. Line number 7 is a bucket name. Then we have a folder called brand. And then we have a file, and that's the file name. And that's the image object that I have put. So if I now go to the terminal, clear it up, and say wget, you will receive the file. Let's see, open that file. And it opened up very cleanly. So this doesn't happen if you are using some kind of a consumer storage like you saw. Versus a developer storage will give you exact links and you can access permissions and you can deal with it programmatically also. Having said, the core concept behind developer-focused storage is what the primary interest of this discussion is. Consumer storage, you already used it. So what's the big deal? From a developer-focused storage as a service, the idea is that most of these storage providers will give you a concept called a bucket. And in those buckets, you put some objects. That's how they deal with it. And to every bucket and also to every object, you can associate permissions. Who can read, who can modify, who can view, who can list, who can delete, all these things. You can associate permissions to every object, to every bucket. And when you say open up an account with a storage as a service provider, and we'll use this example of Amazon Web Services Simple Storage Service, which is S3, Simple Storage Service. We'll use that as an example to begin with, and look at what capabilities they provide, buckets and objects, and how do we make use of it. That's the key. So I want to go to Amazon console and my beginning point, S3, and inside there, you should be able to very simply create a bucket. I have several of them already, but I would like to create a bucket. So I click the blue button and just create a bucket name. We'll call it Silver Lining. You can create the bucket wherever you like in any region that they provide. So I'll just stick to my default region, which is Oregon. And I create the bucket. It says that the bucket name is not available because somebody took it, which is totally okay. It's somebody squatting, or maybe they have this name, so which is fine. So we'll just add something to it.
Even though so it'll look at everybody's?
Yes, because the idea is that you want it to be unique. So let's look at the link. So this was the,
No, hierarchy.
yeah, here. No, everybody gets this same line number 3, and then you get bucket names. So bucket names are unique,
Okay, all right.
right? Like this. So line number 7 is a folder you create inside the bucket. Number 5 is the bucket name.
Right.
That has to be globally unique.
Okay.
And that's why the conflict you see here.
It's just the way they store it.
Yeah. So they want to give you, yeah. See, you can choose the domain name. You don't have to. You can choose like this, Silver Lining at Cloud Genius, which is fine. You can choose whatever name you like. But it is a great idea to squat on your own domain. So if you have a domain, squat on it like this, or like this, or like this. So several domains that I have, I just squat on them. It's a good idea because there are some benefits that I'll be talking in just a few minutes. If you happen to have a domain, you can create a complete website with HTML, CSS, JavaScript without spinning up an EC2 instance. Have you heard of this? No server. You create a complete site and mount it on your domain. And with nothing, I mean, no CPU that you create on the backside. Have you seen this? Here is an example. And so in this example, what you see is, we'll actually do this exercise specifically. The idea behind this is that this whole site that you see, the name is Fungible Clouds. Fungible, the word means that it is substitutable, right? It is not about mushrooms. So the idea is the whole site is created pure HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and there is no EC2 machine on the back end. And we'll do this exercise right now. Just a minute. Now, let's go backwards from this outcome. So this is the outcome we would like to have, something like this, plain site on a domain mounted. But if you look at the URL, let's examine. The URL is my domain, actually my subdomain called blog, and then a folder called blog, and a date, and then a page. Sorry, another. Basically, it's a page, the page reference. So that's how the URL is constructed. And so if you look now back at the S3 bucket, you will see that I'm squatting on line number 3. So how do I squat? Let's go look. So if I try to say cancel and examine where am I squatting, and you will find that the second bucket I have is actually that same thing that I was describing to you. Let's go inside. What do I have here? Just static stuff. JavaScript, HTML, CSS dumped in a folder. And that's how it looks like, with style sheets and index HTML and everything else. But no back-end CPU process running, nothing else. Yes, they're doing it, but they don't charge you for it.
Right.
Beautiful. That's the one I like. And so what you essentially do is you create a bucket, give it your domain name, and then treat that bucket as a website.
Right.
Just treat it as a website, mark its properties to be a website. You associate your DNS records, and bingo, you have a website. Now you get
Not a
to
very exciting one, but
no, but you can make it exciting. I mean, somewhat exciting, like this. It has all the Git repos and Twitter followers and Google Plus links and all the beautiful things. And not only that, you can do even more. Like, you will not believe this, but let's look at this. You will not believe. This is plain text. This. Can you believe the mathematical expressions are plain text? Really? And I'll show you how they are. Right click. Inspect element. See, there are no pictures. This is MathJax. MathJax is a JavaScript library that renders mathematical expressions based on what is it called? LaTeX. You know this thing?
I've seen lots of cartoons make fun of latex.
Yes. So LaTex itself is hard, but it's basically you write it in a notepad and then you process it through JavaScript or MathJax, and then mathematical expression, Schrodinger's equation showing up like this. And there is no picture. I mean, this is not a picture.
Right.
Yes, it is. And the way I would now continue this discussion is that I will go to that S3 bucket and look at where is the S3 bucket there. And so inside here, this whole package of files, basically three things: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, is constructed, dynamically created through a third-party software, which is also open source. And there you write in simple plain text files, and then you apply MathJax processing, JavaScript processing, Markdown processing, and it creates all these files ready for you. So if you look at the corresponding source code, it's very simple. Let's see where the source code is. Not here. Maybe here. You know, it's another repository here. And the things that I actually wrote by hand are these posts. And so if you look at our math version, there. So that's the file I wrote by hand. And let's look at it raw. That's it. That's what I wrote. And this looks like what you saw, the mathematical portion. So this file is written in what is known as Markdown syntax. We'll see a couple more files. A simple one, very simple one. Hello, raw file, Markdown syntax. All it does is, this is a post. And so the corresponding to this, there has to be an entry in the blog that says, hello world. So let's go look at that. Hello world, blog, archives, and the very first entry should be hello world. And so the effort that I had to do was to write this, and I produced this, and I posted here, and I'm done.
Huh.
Yes.
So go back to showing that again.
Showing the blog or the text or
No, the other one, where the outcome there. Okay, so where's all this other stuff coming from?
right. The other stuff is created through a process that an application called Octopress. So it is like Press, but for Ruby people. So here, what you do is you in WordPress, like the blogging application that you probably know already, you write blog posts. In Octopress, you write this, and then you run Octopress, and it creates this, and then you're done. Simple things. This is one of the simplest way to construct a site. Plain simple HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and you can keep blogging all day by creating simple files like this. And many companies use this kind of a framework to publish. So, you know, an example would be, okay, let's say, yep, some simple picture. I posted a picture. I took a picture of my camera and then I posted it. fall is here, 2011, right? Long ago, that fall. So I have a image link to the picture itself, and that's it. So let's go and look at the corresponding archive entry here. And here is the image. Right? So the summary is like this. You create some HTML, CSS, JavaScript using some generator software. There are Ruby packages like Octopress. There is Python packages like Pelican, Octopress, and more. But these generators will create beautiful looking HTML, CSS, JavaScript for you and give you static content. You drop the static result in a bucket and mark the bucket as a site and edit your DNS. You're done. Now, the performance of this is whatever the performance of the storage site is, like the storage service is, which can be slow. I mean, not really, but slow. I should say it is slow. So how do you speed it up? And slow, this, I'm changing topics right now. I'm changing topics from storage over to performance. And so I would be talking about this thing. You familiar with this thing called content delivery networks? An example is from Amazon CloudFront. Another example can be Akamai. You probably know them, use them. Another one is Max CDN. And if you do a search on CDN, you will find a whole list. Not CND, but CDN. And there is Limelight, Cloudflare, goes on and on. So long list of people who provide improvements. The idea is to improve the performance of your sites. How do we actually do that? So we discussed broadly two types of, one for consumer-based storage, and the other one was for developer-focused storage, right? And we just took one example of each. We saw Dropbox on the one hand, and in here we looked at S3. Here we looked at Dropbox as an example. Now we are changing topics a little bit, but still related to this segment here. And we are adding something called CDN, Content Delivery Network. The idea behind CDN is to boost performance. And so if you look at my rough world map, like I'm going to draw the world, kind of a blame drawing, but this is the US, this is South America, this is Europe, and this is Africa, and this is Australia. Let's look at it, and there is Japan here. So this is my world map, and we live here kind of sort of Seattle. And so that is Amazon. That's where Seattle is. Maybe Oregon, where my preferred region is. So my S3 bucket is actually sitting right here. But my users may be in India, here somewhere, or maybe in Australia, or UK, who knows where they are. And so if each one of these people try to access a bucket sitting here, it'll be very slow. So what do I do? And the solution is to put CDN in place. Have you put CDNs in place already? Or is this new? So, okay, no, you haven't. So I'll walk you through very specific things, and we'll do it. After I finish talking in the next 10 minutes, we'll do these things right here, right now. So the core idea behind a CDN is that it helps you take your content near your users. So you have a person sitting here, and your bucket is somewhere in Seattle, and this guy is in Singapore. So what CDN will do is basically whenever this person first time tries to access your thing, your object to be precise, not thing, I should say thingy, but whenever, yeah, more technically accurate.
Yeah.
So when this guy tries to access this object that you have, maybe you have some logo.jpg sitting here in the bucket, right? Now this guy, say, for example, tries to access that object, it'll be very slow. And the first time it tries to access, it will miss the CDN, I should qualify. Miss the CDN. It will still get the file, but will miss the CDN. It'll get the file very slow. But since there was a miss on the CDN, what CDN will do is locally cache in Singapore, cache logo.jpg. And so next time, it will not be a miss. It'll be a hit. And the hit will come from here, not from
Or
here.
the next user, or the next time the same user?
Next user in this region, India, Pakistan, Singapore,
Being cached
yeah,
in S3.
in that region.
In that.
We were
No, it's
trying
not
that.
cached in CDN in that region, not S3. S3 is only in wherever you are. So
Right.
it'll be in CloudFront. So CloudFront is the name of the service from Amazon that will geographically cache.
We were trying that. I worked on, Boeing tried to put internet on the airplane one time. It's called Connections by Boeing.
Hmm.
And they were trying to, that was one of the schemes they were trying to do, because the problem with internet on the plane is that it was bounced from satellite and it was really slow, really slow.
Hmm.
So you had to try to do a lot of caching. They couldn't get enough really storage on board. It was hard to predict what people would go to. So that didn't work out so well, but it was the same idea.
Yeah. Yes, and that, you know, yeah, through experience, people will eventually develop it again. It will come. It's just a matter of doing it. So maybe another study, Boeing will come up with a new product, and so now
I think we're out of that business.
I see. So you
We'll
gave
let
it to.
somebody else do it.
Makes sense. Yeah, sticking to core competence is a great idea, right? And so, in fact, that is what cloud computing is all about. Is about core competence. And I'm saying that. Did I say that already? In the very first day, I did not mention. Maybe I should just do that. So the idea is this professor. His name is C.K. Prahalad. He was at my university, and he created this word, core competence of the corporation. You heard this word before.
Yeah, we used it a lot.
Yeah, I know. And so everybody uses it. And so he coined it. And the core idea behind core competence is that if you do a thing very nicely, just stick to it.
Yeah, like a pizza place shouldn't do tacos too.
That's right. And so if you are a brain surgeon, like listen to this, should you be mowing your lawn? Core competence, right? Should you be mowing your lawn or not? Should you outsource it to the teenager next door?
It depends.
Yes, that's the right answer always. And so the right answer. So let me be.
Mowing your lawn, then yes, you should.
Yeah, let me be more clear. Let me be more clear. If it is a Saturday and your hospital is closed and your clinic is closed and you have nothing else to do, you are at your home, it is nice and sunny and warm outside, your family is gone away, you have really nothing else to do, and the grass is growing. You need somebody to mow the lawn, and you are a brain surgeon, top notch. Should you mow the lawn? And you see the teenager right there next door, and he's doing nothing, and you know him. Now, tell me, should you mow the lawn or not? It's a trick question.
You should.
So yes, you should.
You're risking injury.
Yeah, good way to think. Yes, but I would agree with you is that you should mow the lawn, and the simple logic behind is that you look at your alternative. Like, what can you do right now? No brain surgery. It is Saturday. You have nothing else. The hospital is closed. Everything is closed. So, is the opportunity to actually mow the lawn is probably more valuable to you than to give maybe $20, $30 to the neighbor's kid and have him or her do it. So you actually waste, I'm being cheapo here in that example, but you waste opportunity and money by doing that. So in fact, my professor used to also say that if Bill Gates is walking to go meet with, let's say, the Apple CEO, right? And he finds a penny on the road, should he bend down and get it? Absolutely not, because he's going to meet another big guy and he's busy doing something. But now imagine the other extreme, which is Bill Gates is walking towards to go meet Tim Cook. Sorry, he's just walking, he's doing nothing, and he finds a penny on the road. And it is Sunday, Saturday evening, whatever. So he's nothing else to do. Should he bend down and pick up the penny or not? The economic answer is yes. Economic answer is Bill Gates should also bend down and pick it up, because this is called arbitrage. And this concept is classic economics. Professors will talk like this. You may not agree, even I don't agree, but that's the economic implication. So the idea is core competency, that if you are in the retail business, you should not be in the business of managing data centers. Let somebody else do it.
Amazon doesn't want to hear that though.
I know that's a fluke example.
They're changing their core competency though.
Exactly. So they actually evolved their core competency from retail into cloud services, which is a great thing. So they now have this core competence of actually managing data centers, and they're giving that as a service. Their competence itself is AWS, is a separate business, by the way. AWS LLC is separate from Amazon, technically owned by the same guy.
So this is really, it's a good discussion, because those kinds of things have come up in Boeing a lot of times, that no, we shouldn't be doing things like the internet on the airplane. Well, I contend that we were still doing, it wasn't out of our core competency, because we were taking some things that were, we developed the antenna, for instance. So we developed that antenna for the military, and we were using that. So that was a competency. Where we fell down was they had a bunch of satellite guys that thought that you really get paid for producing paper rather than producing real stuff, right? So all they did for like 8 months was produce paper. But it could have worked.
Yeah, in large companies, it is kind of hard to argue. But I would suggest reading this guy's book. He's unfortunately not with us anymore. He left.
Right.
Yeah.
Left the planet.
Left the planet. And so he used to live in San Diego, and just a few years ago he died, 2010. Awesome professor. Right. This is the guy who got me into the US. He came to India, met me, and that's how I came to the US. I was totally fine in India, like totally.
Not very old.
No, 68, yeah. And so he's he was a professor of corporate strategy, and many books, like famous one is this core competency book.
That's a good question.
Yes, you should read this book. And another book you should start reading is The Goal. This one. And so this book is used in the second month. I will email you the link. The name is The Goal. And if you look at Jeff Bezos and ask him, what are the top 3 books you want your senior officers to read? This is one of them. So this is a book on, I call it my DevOps book. It has no reference to any computer whatsoever, but it has like pretty darn good ratings.
Yeah.
And very 4.5 out of 5 stars and 594 reviews. And Bezos top 3 books. Let's see what Bezos says. Yeah. So what Jeff Bezos asks his senior officers to read, and the 3 books are The Effective Executive, The Innovator's Dilemma, and The Goal. So The Goal actually is a DevOps book. So I would suggest you start reading it. It should be in the library in Boeing. It should be in public library, available anywhere. If not, online with overdrive.com, which is a library app. In King County Library, you can get any book here. Overdrive for free. Overdrive, there is an app for that, and King County Library System works with it. And if all else fails, just go to Amazon. Buy it. Yeah, $12.99 something. It's a good book. And now let me be honest. It's a pretty darn boring book. You will fall asleep. Yeah, but please read, because I have read it after 7 attempts.
So it's not really written in a fast-paced thriller style, then, is it? As it says.
No, I hated reading that book. I have read it,
I've read a number of books I hated, so.
Right.
maybe-
but
maybe
it
first,
if
right?
after you read it, you realize that it's a really good book.
Yeah.
But it takes time to actually, so he's like very boring. In fact, I find it very boring way of writing, but the book itself is pretty darn good. And I strongly recommend you read it before the class starts 23rd of Feb, when the second month starts. Please read it before that. That'll be awesome. Otherwise, I'll give you a summary of the book itself that day, but good to read. And so CDN and core competence, back to that discussion, which is what CDN is doing is to put things closer to the customer, wherever the customer is. And the first user in that region will get a miss, meaning he or she will suffer slowness. But then CDN will pick up and cache it locally, right? So that's the concept. Now, we have to do these things of CDN and content delivery in an automated fashion. So the idea, if you look at what really constitutes performance and what's the easiest way for you to measure performance, are you familiar with this thing called Firefox and Firebug? You know this thing already? Yeah, Firebug. So that extension for web browser, Firebug, if you install that extension in Firefox and then open any site in there and say Firebug, and then say why slow. By the way, this why slow is the extension you should also have. The name is why slow, and it actually means WHY slow. Why is it slow? And it's by Yahoo. That's why the name why comes from. And so you run the test of why slow. It'll give you an overall result and give you very detailed analysis of why this site is slow. One of them is that you're not using CDN yet. So I'll be using CDN eventually. So the first failure is, actually this first red item is use a content delivery network, grade F, because I'm not using it. So this is one way to measure your performance of your assets, your properties that you create. Now, having said, in a typical web property that you have, you will have some HTML, some CSS, and some JavaScript, and some images, and some videos, and some other downloads that really come down. All these people, all these things reach the end user, right? They reach the end user. They have to reach the end user in the most effective, efficient manner. If you look at approximate size of the objects here in terms of download size, these things are typically very small. Small again, can be large, but really in kilobytes, maybe a couple hundred kilobytes max. Images can be big, problem. Videos can be really big, another problem. And downloads, you don't know how big they are. Can be 5.7 gigabytes, right? Who knows? So the idea is to focus on where the heavy download items are and make sure that they reach the end user quickly. And so what you would do is to create some kind of a subdomain to your domain.com and associate that with a CloudFront endpoint. And so all your static elements in a site, such as images, videos, or say PDF downloads, or even JS and CSS, all compressed. Put these items in some kind of a bucket in S3, and then cover it up with a CDN and associate that CDN endpoint with a custom domain for you, a custom subdomain for you like this. So let's do that exercise, which is, first thing is, let's identify a simple image. I'll use this image as an example and put that in a bucket. So I'll go here and go to an S3 account, create a bucket first. So I'll go to create a bucket. I'll call it Silver Lining in the cloud. I'm going to create that bucket. Click created. Bucket is ready. And here it is. So I'll go inside the bucket, and the bucket contains nothing. Totally expected. Now you can use the browser interface to upload items to the bucket, or you can use a third-party software available for your operating system. Could be CyberDuck.io. Looks like this. Or you can use Cloudberry Explorer for Windows. Looks like this. And so these software essentially connect to the S3, to your S3, to your buckets, and expose like this. I'm starting my Cloudberry, my whatever this thing is, CyberDuck, and I'll say allow, and I'll go to my Amazon S3, not here, but this one, click, and this will show me the same buckets that I have here in the browser. Here, all the buckets I have are here, and I can compare them with these things. In fact, you will find that the Silver Lining bucket, is it too small? Probably. But you can trust me that this line is the Silver Lining in the cloud bucket I just created in a web browser, showed up here in the software. The same thing essentially. Now this is like, it is like a folder. You can treat it like a folder almost. Meaning you can take your files that you have, let's say this logo picture. So I'm going to take that logo and drag it and drop it, and it will get uploaded to the bucket, and there it goes. It did. What it means is that I can now go back to my Amazon console, go to that specific bucket, and I should find the logo picture there. If I click on the picture itself and go to properties, I should be able to find the details of that property, and you will find that this item has a link that I should be able to take and try to open and fail, because the default permissions are secured. Cannot access. It says access denied. Again, expected. So we'll change the properties, change the permissions like this. So this is me. Now I change it to add more permissions, and I'll say anybody, everybody can download or view permissions or edit permissions. I mean, I can go extent of letting people do whatever they want, but that's bad. So yes, so you can basically adjust it the way you like, and they can view permissions if you want them to, edit permissions if you want them to, and then once you have this saved, then that permission updates. So now everybody can open and view. So we should now refresh it and watch that same bucket, and inside that same bucket, the same object, and check its properties. And you will find that it is now shareable. The blue icon is shared out. So I can now take that same link, and there we go. Right? So this is this very simple idea. Take an object, put it in a bucket, and you're done. Now inside that bucket, you can create further folders, folder number 1, folder number 2. And you can basically, operate on just like a folder structure, tree structure in a classic file system. It operates just like that, except you cannot seek into a file halfway through, or seeking on a file inside a file system. It doesn't work like that. You have to take the whole object, bring it down locally, and then you seek into it.
Okay.
But like halfway seeking in the cloud object doesn't work. You have to bring it down locally and then deal with it like a regular file. You have to push the whole object there, and then you can also deal with it. So from a simple HTML, CSS, JavaScript based site, if you create a static site and drop it in here, what you need to do is go to the detail, metadata, and permissions. And there is somewhere to mark it as you have to do it at the folder level. So go to the Silver Lining folder. Yeah, not at the object level, but at the bucket level. You have to mark the bucket as a static website and set its permissions as read by everyone. You have to add a bucket policy also, by the way. So I'll describe that also. And here you enable site hosting, put an index document, call it index.html, and then you save. Effectively, you're done. Now, however, the Silver Lining in the cloud is not a fully qualified domain name. So we'll have to have we'll run into an issue. So if you have a domain already, do you have a DNS domain name they can use for the class? Okay, go to 1and1.com and get one, like $1 probably. So here you can get a domain name for $1, 99 cents. So get one and play with it. For the first year, it will be 99 cents, and later on you can discard it if you like. But I think it's a good idea to have a domain for experimentation in the class. So go get that. This is 99 cents. I think GoDaddy is also giving, since it's football season just ended. Yeah, there it is. No, don't get this per month business. Do not get this. That's bad. It's a per month thing. No, I just want only the domain. Nah, not here. Somewhere else you'll have to find domain for $299. No.
Does 1&1 restrict you on how many domains you can get?
I don't know. I never tried. I don't go there. I don't like them. But the only reason I bring it up is that they seem to be the only one that gives a .com domain for 99 cents for the first time user, which is most of my audience, right? So I just pick the cheapest one and give them. So here it is, order and then get a 99 cents domain, play with it, throw it away if you don't like it. I actually don't like this site. I prefer this Namecheap, which is $6, but somehow I have all my domains here. Yeah, I buy wherever I find them, or whenever I find cheapest, and then I consolidate all my domains in this location. That's what I do typically. But this is a good one to get. Just get whatever you like lastname.com or your upcoming future business startup.com, whatever you want. And then you create that name as a bucket here. And then come back and mark that bucket as a static site. Like you're watching me do it right now, like this. Enable static hosting, put an index file, and save. And this will enable you to accomplish similar thing that I have here, pretty much. So to run this site doesn't cost a thing, except there's some trickle storage charges I occasionally get, like 2 cents or something from the storage service every 3 months. So that's my storage bill for that site. And that's it. There's no CPU, no EC2 instance, no nothing. I also have this service, which I use, which I think you should also use, which is called Route 53. Are you familiar with that service? DNS services, like Bind. You know what Bind is?
Yes.
So that's Bind. So the idea would be to use Route 53, which is the DNS port, by the way, port 53. So they have called the service Route 53. And for that, what you can do is associate name to number. For example, the name or DNS name to an IP address. This type of record is called an A record. Are you familiar with that? And so like that, you will be able to create a whole host of different types of records.
Charge
50 cents per month.
or how many?
Any number.
Any number?
Yeah, I think any number. I don't remember the pricing, but I have like so many. I get a for 50 cent every month bill.
Any number.
I think so. I think it is. Yeah, check it out. The Route 53 pricing. I think I have not hit a limit, but the pricing is 50 cent per hosted zone for the first 25 hosted zones, and there are no number of line limits. Huh? 10 cents after that. Pretty cheap. I think that's the price.
Okay, that's not the DNS Central. That's just.
Yeah, it is the entry, like you see here. These are the DNS entries for me. Right, there's the whole zone file, like the A record and the MX records and all that. So I have a fairly long list of things that I have created. A couple of things that you may not be aware of that I want to point out are things like, you probably know CNAME, you probably know A records. Let's recap that quickly. The idea behind an A record is that you have a name to number or name to IP address. It's like, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. That's the IP address. And this is called the White House. Right? That's the name to number association. So this kind of a record is called an A record. Sometimes you have Matt, known as Matthew. Right? That type of record is called a CNAME. Right? An example of this would be seen those before? Such aliases for long names. Yeah. So these are aliases called CNAME aliases. A couple others that you may not be aware of is this. You know these things? DKIM, SPF,
By name, yeah.
right? So let's see where they come from. Where do I have my DKIM? The use first. Let's get to the use. So I'll go examine my email, and they're related to email. So let's see. We have who sent me an email. The very last one. Probably, yeah, here. So let's see. If you look at Michael's email, he's sending an email from Boeing, and it says mailed by Boeing.com. Now this representation happens because of an SPF record. It is called Sender Policy Framework, and the signature knows that the sender actually is Boeing. If you don't set an SPF record, you will miss this entry. Another one would be the DKIM record, and I cannot see it, but you can if you see my email, because Boeing doesn't seem to sign DKIM. That's what I notice, which is something that I think you should tell Boeing. But if you look at the email I sent to you, you will find that it is signed by CloudGenius. Also, not just mailed by CloudGenius, but also signed by CloudGenius. Now, since I don't have an email from, let's see, maybe another example, I'll pull it up. Somebody sent me an email. Let's pull up this example. Click. And see, this guy is sending me some email. So let's click. Mailed by RP6. Good. Got it. But where is signed by RP6? That is missing. They haven't done it. They should do that. Let's see more. I'll show an example where they have done it right. And where is that example? It is done on my domain correctly. And so let's see this guy. Yeah. So this guy sends me, and it is mailed by and signed by my domain. Now, both these signatures are validated for confirmation of ownership of sender domain, and they are these two records, line number 11 and 13. This line corresponds to mailed by, and this line corresponds to signed by. Boeing is missing this one.
Where do you see those properties?
Huh?
Where do you see those properties?
We have to set them when we configure a record. So we set them like this.
Well, not where you set them necessarily, but how are you seeing those?
Yeah, so you look at the email coming from Boeing, let's say Boeing, this one, and then you click here and then you examine.
Can I see that in
Outlook?
Mac client, email client?
No.
I wonder if I can see it.
I think Gmail browser client shows you. There are other methods to examine this. If you go look at DNS records and examining for any domain, you can see these entries through dig command like this. You can check them out by.
All email clients don't show them.
Yes, some email clients show. If you go look at the header of the email,
Right.
you will see that the DKIM signature and
So
the
what's the signed by really saying?
signed by says that I have a signature associated on the domain that authenticates I am the real owner. And any email communication is signed by that domain owner.
So it's the intent there, I'm gathering that is to make sure that somebody isn't spoofing your email. And,
Bingo.
okay.
Yeah, it is about spoofing. It's about improving email deliverability. So if you go back to our, where was that? Console. Where did I miss the console? No, not here. I think I missed it. Let's go there again. Console. And then go to our DNS settings. And let's examine the DKIM entry and the SPF entry carefully. So you will see it. It's very simple. And here is the SPF entry. So let's look at that. Sender policy framework. The entry is this. Let's dissect it. It is about the A record and about the MX record, and it includes sent from these servers. So any machine that claims to be one of these is okay. If it is not one of these, then it is not okay, but still permissive.
Validating the,
Yeah, the center machine.
right.
If the line number 14 is permissive, so it's not very strict. You can make it strict by saying a dash as opposed to a tilde. So the permissiveness, yeah, I have kept it relaxed. But these are the places 9, 10, 11, and 12 where I send email out from. So most of the email that I send goes out from 9, which is Google, where I have my domain hosted. Sometimes I email out from this box, number 10, which is a mail sending service. Line number 11 is something that I'm trying out as an alternative to line number 10. And line 12 is my CRM system where I send out junk. Sorry, I actually don't spam, but that's how people send junk mail, spam, and you receive spam in their communication occasionally. And so those are MailChimp, Infusionsoft, and a bunch of other companies have built businesses on email marketing. And so you sometimes receive newsletters from people. And so those who opt into my services and they want to hear from me, that I send them emails. And those emails go out from 12. And so they have a mailed by signature, which is SPF record. Got it? Simple to put, but most companies tend to ignore. Bad idea. Let's look at the next one, which is DKIM. And here you see a hash, RSA signed, and that's the hash. This hash is generated by the sender machine, and I need to put it in my records as DKIM, so that the machine, when it is sending, gets correctly identified as signed by, because the signature provider is the machine itself. So the corresponding private key sits in the machine. This one sits in Google servers. For Mandrill, I have a different key.
So not a self-signing statement.
Yes, it is the provider signed, but yes, concept is same. So I have, for Mandrill, I have the line number 8. And for Mandrill, I have line number 10. And for Google, I have line number 4. And for every machine that I want to send email out from, that I have to have a DKIM public key here embedded in the DNS record for that domain as a text record. These are TXT records, like here. And there are more. Like I'm using another service called SMTP API. So that is the SMTP API is actually SendGrid that I am actually not using, but another one. SendGrid, another service to send out emails. I used to use, but I'm not using it recently. But I have a signature put in place in case I decide to use them, I can put. So the idea here is signed by signatures, and that technology is implemented by Google completely, not implemented by Office 365 yet. And so if you look at this link, will probably tell us what they are doing. And I think the last time I checked, it was on the roadmap. Let's see what that blog link says from Microsoft. And it is probably the same. So it doesn't yet implement.
Most the DKIM piece.
DKIM piece is not implemented yet in Office 365, but this one, Google has done it.
Right. Because you have the standard framework, SPF.
Right. So you can use both. So one gets you mailed by, one gets you signed by. And then the third one, which I briefly mentioned, but I did not yet describe, was DMARC. And that is here. It is DMARC. It is a fairly recent item, a new evolving thing that has come up. Let's search DMARC here. And so let's see what this DMARC does. I have another record that says this. What does it mean? Is that it's essentially an aggregation of compliance reports collected by mail ISPs. So like Yahoo, Google, Outlook, Hotmail, they are big ISPs that most people have emails with. So these ISPs actually collect statistics as to who is sending emails to people at large from your domain. And they gather these statistics and give you summary reports. You can choose to receive these reports in an email that you specify in this record. And so if you put your own email, you will actually get Excel spreadsheets or some kind of an, CSV file of report every week, dump. These emails went out to these audiences worldwide in our ISP, and so you get a summary. It's kind of hard to digest and understand what that thing is because it's our CSV files and I don't want to deal with them. You need energy, right? So I can give you some extension. Yeah, use that. And so there are services available from companies outside. That's the closest, I think.
You record long? You should be long enough. You can move up here. I showered today.
So this particular method, what I have chosen is to not receive the files myself. Instead, send them to a service that aggregates these results for me and shows me a summary. So let's see the summary, what it shows. And so here is the service called DMARCian. I'm going to sign in and log in and check it out. I haven't seen this in quite some time, so I'll see what's going on. Let's find out. So it says that I have one domain that I'm actively using, 1131 messages. DKIM and SPF was in 98% of the times. DKIM only was used 1.7% of the time. SPF only 0.2%, and none was 0. Good coverage. Third party, 0 servers, so nobody else seems to be using me, or at least pretending to be me, which is nice. SPF is an error state. It shows you some pink or red color here. That means it's an error. Let's see the error. It says too many DNS lookups in the SPF record. Count was 13. And the too many became too many when it became 13. It was okay until it was 12. We added one more line about this customer IO mail a few weeks ago because I'm trying them out. As opposed to Mandrill app, I'm trying the new service, customeriomail.com, as a sending method of emails. And so that bumped the count from 12 to 13. And now this guy's policy says one issue needs attention. Click. And the issue is that flaw found in SPF record. Correct the flaw as soon as possible. Too many DNS lookups. That's the flaw, according to this guy. And I said, yeah, whatever. But so that's a summary of all the records that you're probably familiar with, but some of these are not so used, but should be used. Improves your reliability of email delivery. So the summary was on A records, CNAME, MX records. You probably already know. I don't need to go through that. You've set up MX already, I guess. Have you? Yes or no? The mail exchanger records to receive email from other people. I'll show you that example also. PTR records, SRV records, SPF, DKIM, and then your DMARC. These are a variety of DNS records. You can all put them in Route 53. And so if you haven't seen MX records, I will show it to you. Let's see them. The idea behind MX records is very, very simple. It goes like this.
So you end up just using the service itself to handle all the DNS. So like at GoDaddy, you just point DNS to Route 53 and then install your DNS there.
That's how you should do it. In fact, you should keep your DNS entries separate from Daddy's. I mean GoDaddy. Because the name seller shouldn't be your name server. If you do that way, you have the flexibility to keep changing your name seller every time you find a lower price. And keep your name server in one consolidated place with all your entries beautifully done and protected. If you go to choose the DNS that GoDaddy provides or Namecheap provides or anybody else provides that is not as reliable, I am saying with quotes, you might run into a DNS DDoS attack, which I did run into a few years ago. Somebody was attacking my domain itself. And so even though the site was up and running and everything, DNS would not resolve. And so users would not be able to reach. And at that time, I decided, you know what? I'm going to spend 50 cents and move. And I moved to Route 53. And so they have a fairly elaborate setup. You cannot seem to attack Route 53. But people successfully attacked Namecheap and GoDaddy. And so that's a problem. So to examine, here's a tool that you should use, Dig. The tool is simple to use. Just put the domain name and say, tell me your A record. It will tell you the A record. Dig, please tell me the A record for some other domain. Let's say this one. It will tell you the A record. Or some other domain, such as this one. It will give you the A record. So A record is, the syntax is simple. It is dig, domain name, and then A record. It'll give you the A record. If you put MX here, it'll give you the MX record. And let's examine the MX records for dig boeing.com MX. Let's see. Wow, you have so many servers dealing with your email, right? STL, MB, SIN 0123 goes on and on. So all these are priority 10 machines. So you can see 10. And they're probably load balanced.
Bellevue, St. Louis, St. City.
I see. So a bunch of email servers in Boeing that you can see spread out. Let's compare that with teeny business. Not teeny. I got equally big number of servers that you got. Now, how did that happen? Because I might be teeny, but I'm using Google, right? So and in fact, I have even more elaborate IPv6 based addressing also. There we go. Right? That's how you actually set records in MX entries. So these are the MX entries, by the way, the answer section. This section is the 5 entries that I have put. You can compare them with your email provider company will give you these entries. You basically come back here in your Route 53 and look at your MX record entries and no, not here. Cancel. Cancel. And there we go. So we have these MX entries sitting right here in that box. And that's where you drop your entries and then your email starts flowing. And if you haven't heard me how actually email flows, there are 2 types of records to enable mail. One of them is this SMTP has to be able to send out through port 25 or 587 or 465, one of these ports, the newer ports for transport layer security based, or the older ports 25 based. That's how email goes out from your laptop or your iPhone. And then it has a user at domain. And so it will go look at this domain and find the corresponding records for MX from the DNS entry. And then start looking for a mailbox in that computer in priority number 10, 20, whatever sequences you have, and look at these machines and let that email that you send out from this box flow to that box. And that's how email actually flows. So you need to have a method of sending it out through SMTP and receiving it in MX on your servers. And then you can access your mailbox wherever these boxes are. So in practicality, you would put your box, put your mailbox somewhere like this, and that's where you receive your email. So these boxes represent your mail server. And when you send, you have these SMTP settings that you may have seen before that I should bring it up. And they are here. No, not this one. Accounts. No. Edit info. Yeah, you've seen these entries before, right? This is how you will configure your phone or your laptop. And so this port number 587 is corresponding to the transport layer security port that Google wants us to use when it is sending email out from this server. So that's this segment of machine that sends the email out, and the other end will look up the MX records from DNS and then transport that message over to the other end. Now did you attempt that bucket creation or something with your domain yet? Can you see if other people can access that link for your object? Meaning, what I want to be able to do is ask you to please share with me your object. So you can do that by something like this. Ask me a link in chat and see if I can open it. So I have sent you a chat invitation, your invitation. You can pass me a link on that. And this way we can see if I can access your object stored in your S3. Yeah, just put the chat, should bring it up. Which email are you logged into? Which email?
I'm gonna log into. I had a incognito browser window that had my AWS cloud.
Okay, incognito. It worked out. Okay, right? Yeah. So here is how. Sweet.
Restored the non-incognito window, you know.
Nice.
That way I don't have to switch back and forth. Okay.
Fair
Email and
Fair enough, fair enough. So you can project your screens like this. Just if you look at that triangle thingy on your laptops, you can just project to Apple TV and your laptop will show up here. That way you can also, if you want to share something with the class, very easily you can do that. So having said this, I want to now describe you the CDN scenario. So you have an object in your S3 bucket and you want to make it go faster to your end user. What would you do is the question. And the answer would be that you actually go to CloudFront, which is on the other end. Below storage, CDN, storage and content delivery in the upper segment here. And then click on CloudFront. And here I have this apparently disabled item. I'm going to delete that because I'm not using it. And I have 2 CloudFront entries already in place. Now, in case of CloudFront, let's examine this particular entry, which is this one, and study it. We can create our own entries, and we'll do that in just a moment. But if you look at this entry itself and understand its origin, when I said and described CloudFront to you, what CloudFront essentially does is takes whatever your origin location is and take all the items from your origin and then distributes it worldwide. That's what CDN essentially does. So it expects you to give them an origin. Take my stuff from here and give it to the world. CDN. And so that origin definition is what you define, and I have defined it here, which actually is a S3 bucket. And so this is a custom origin type. Typically, the origin types can be a machine. So you can have, in principle, in concept, you can have a machine, a droplet in DigitalOcean and put that as your origin and ask Amazon Web Services CDN CloudFront to front it and distribute it worldwide. This droplet can be a teeny tiny droplet in New York or Amsterdam or San Francisco. But the CDN can take the elements from your droplet as your origin and distribute it worldwide. Makes it efficient. Now I will show you a real life example. So one example I already showed you, which was this. This site is actually this site is a CDN site. It's not just an S3 site. What I mean by that is this. And the custom origin for that is this. At the bottom, we have an S3 bucket. We created a static website using custom site configuration in S3. And then we received line number 8 from S3. We give that line 8 as a custom origin to CDN, and then CDN gives us something else. Let's examine what CDN gives us. So if you go and say, let's see, clear dig this, what do we get? I'm digging fungible clouds. So I'm going to make it a little smaller so you can see the whole thing. Clear again. Dig this entry, right? blog.fungibleclouds.com. Enter. And what do I get? I get a CNAME to this. Let's compare that. So line number 1, which is the blog representation that people see, the public will consume, is actually a CNAME. The CNAME is given to us by CDN. The name itself, line number 5, was given to us by CloudFront. Where did they give us? So we'll go to CloudFront and say, hey, what do I choose? And say, okay, you choose this domain name. This one. And the aliases, you put these two. So I actually have two aliases. One is my name, and the other is the domain. My name should also work. There it did. It did. And so there are two aliases, which is this and this. 1 and 2, both are aliases, but the actual representation is number 6, which is a kind of hard to remember name. So I have a CNAME.
That should come up also, right?
It did. It did.
Okay.
Yeah, it did. Right there.
Well, I mean, if you put that in URL.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, indeed. So let's take that, copy, and bingo. And in fact, the origin should also come up. So if you look at the origin, which is line number 10, so take the origin. Origin should also come, but it will be slow,
Right.
which is okay, but it does. And there it is. We have the origin, line number 10, cloud fronted as line number 6, CNAMEd as line number 1 and 2. And these things simply expedite the delivery of content across the globe in all these entries right below. Like all these things, these are a variety of endpoints spread out geographically with different IP addresses. And so this tiny little site that costs me 2 cents every 3 months is a very high performing site worldwide. Just like that. And CDN doesn't cost me because there's no visitors, right? There are no visitors. That's the real reason why it costs so low, because nobody visits it except except me.
So when they do, it's like that.
That's right. That's exactly right. So that's how you actually go and enable it. And this is just as an academic exercise. I did it because it describes the concept very clearly. Like, what do you actually do? How do you put it to use?
So how do you really get charged by that? Is it
The content delivery charges are based on how many times and how many gigs. So it's gigs, and these are like small little things. It never reaches a gig. It hasn't.
so
Since
you don't know until you
2009
get
or
the
something.
bill?
Huh?
You don't know until you get the bill. They're gonna-
No, I know that the bill is 3 cents every 3 months or something like that.
So can you cap it so that they won't?
Yes. The capping is a billing policy. You can set in Amazon, or any provider will give you a billing policy. You know, beyond that, don't charge me, stop my service.
Right.
That's a billing method you can enable, or you can also get alerted. Like if I go beyond,
I'd rather stop it.
The-
You get out of control really fast, right?
Right. Yeah.
You wake up one morning and you got $1 million charge.
I know. That happened to me, by the way, and not $1 million, but a $600 charge. And I was at like 9 o'clock working on Amazon, and I see 719 machines in every single region popped up. I said, what just happened? I immediately started shutting them down. And here is what happened. I should show you that. Support center. And I call Amazon after I shut the machine down, delete all my keys, completely clean up my account, and I call Amazon. And there we go, January 1st. The question I had for them was, I see strange charge. And for your request, I have added $600 of credit to your account. Nice. But yes, it did happen. It might happen. So, just keep your account secure. It happened this year, 1st of January, early in the morning, I wake up, boom. And I was actually working. So it was only $600 because this is the charge for every hour. This is the max charge you can get on EC2 every hour.
So did you ever find out what?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I will admit it was my mistake.
Okay.
Yeah, it was my mistake. I was being stupid. I let my keys out in a Git repository. Yes, remember that. I must admit that it was my mistake. I was dealing with EDX, the public, the software I've been playing with. It's open source. So I cloned it, put my keys in, and pushed it.
Well, okay, so
It's a public repository.
Yeah, it's public source code, right? So by mistake, I put my keys and committed in Git and pushed. And so somebody got to access it, and they just started a bot. What they did essentially was started a Bitcoin miner in every region across Amazon, 19 machines, the biggest possible machines you can get. And I suddenly see, 19 machines? I didn't start them. What happened? And I'm actually working on Amazon trying to set up EDX over the Christmas break. And boom. So machines, ouch. Then I figured, you know what? Key, where is my key? I immediately break my keys.
So that that brings up kind of another discussion point that I'm getting kind of the idea that there's so many places to go. I'm amazed at you keeping track of all this, is what I'm saying, I guess, is that how do you, there's so many things, so many moving pieces that you've got to keep really good track of what you've got going where, right? I mean, and you put stuff in, you put accounts in, you forget them, right? You go away, and so, things renew, and you forget you got this over here and that component over there.
Yes, and I think the best answer to that is self-discipline. Right? I have learned hard way like this. I just showed you an example. Yes, I'm human and I make mistakes, and I have made mistakes, and I just did. And I showed you an example of Amazon corrected it for me. Thank you. Very nice of them. But they thanked me for being alert, because I was able to close down the machines within like 30 minutes. I saw it, I started shutting them down before I called them, and then I said, hey, what just happened? And they did not know what happened. I did not know what happened. They just gave me a credit, and I basically cleaned up every single zone, every single region in my account.
See, that's like going on vacation and having your water main break.
I know.
You could, what if you've been gone a week
And
away from it?
right, I know. And so the things that I have learned over the years is to put a very tight methodical control on whatever I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
Because I deal with so many things.
Right, I can see that. I mean, you just given us a sampling of this thing, and there's a lot of stuff.
And I haven't even touched a
I'm
bunch
sure.
of things. I'm just starting to give you samplings
Right.
as to what can, it can be huge. And it is huge. So what I do is put everything in a Git repository. It's kind of my favorite thing. It is nerdy, but it works. So I have made sure that I put everything in a private repository. You have access to private repositories now. You should.
Yeah.
And we will, in the 2 classes from now, we will do a Git session. And I'll walk you through how I do it. How will I manage secrets? How I preserve my keys? What I have learned. I'll share that with you, and you can improve upon that, because these are things that are improving like all the time. Security methods can never be secure enough.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
we'll discuss that. So the discussion today up until now, do you want to give it a shot of doing something, or did you find it useful? How was today, this storage thing? Storage and CDN, we discussed two concepts.
Yeah, that is very useful. I think it's yeah, especially as you, I mean, if you deal with anything that's geographically dispersed.
Yep. And so here is a very simple academic example I have put to practice is take a bucket, put stuff, expose it, make it a site, create a custom origin, give it to CDN, and then the CDN alias, you take that and put a CNAME and call it your site, and a highly performing, highly functional site. 2 cents. You can do that. Now, what I'm proposing, that we have our machines here, we have Ruby installed. Let's play with that thing and create a static site, generate it, put it in a bucket, and expose it in some name. Interesting? Want to do that? Go on, why not? That's one. The other thing that I want to do is, yeah, one more thing.
Is there another way to add content to the S3 folder?
Just drop into the browser.
Does it work?
Browser will work. Upload browser. Browser has an upload button. So the other thing that about S3 I should not forget, which is every S3 object by definition is also downloadable by a torrent. Every. Let's see how it works. So you have this object that you saw me using it in the silver lining thingy, right? So I'm going to check its properties. And it is read by everyone, which is good. General properties are the web URL is available. So I can click on the web URL and I can see my picture right there. So I'll take that and attach a question mark torrent at the end. So let's get the link again one more time. So here is the file that I got. Right. Let's dissect it. We have the domain assigned to us as a Amazon S3. Then we have the file itself. That's line number 7 is the file name. Line number 3 is the domain name we got from Amazon when we converted that site and exposed the item, the object as public. So read by everybody. That's how it's laid out. So we have our bucket name chosen as this, and it is in US West 2, which is Oregon region. So line number 5 is US West 2, S3. And number 3 is the bucket name. And that's how the file is laid out. Now, at the end of all this, if you just attach these words, you get torrent seed. Do you understand what a torrent seed is? And so that's what you get. That's as simple as that. Every object, if it is publicly readable, is a torrent. So if you look at like this, so basically at the end you put a question mark torrent, you get a seed, and we'll go download the seed. Now I'm going to put the question mark torrent at the end and see what happens when I enter. Something downloads. Let's see what downloaded. Open. So it looks like we have this file got downloaded, this item. And this item is the torrent seed. Let's examine that. You can open it and it will start torrenting, seeding, and bringing the file down through torrent protocol as opposed to an HTTP download protocol. What does that mean? It means that you can use S3 bucket as your torrent server. seed server and cut down on unnecessary bandwidth cost. Let's say you have the same item, but this time you have the trusty.ova file. The same thing, same everything, except the file is not that image, but a 5.7 gigabyte package, line number 4. And I want to distribute this same package to a class of 25 people spread out across the globe, wherever they are. Now, how do I do that? I actually use this method. But these days, since Google Drive is free, I don't care. I just give them Google Drive link and they download, and I don't care. They don't care either. It works. But when it was not free, it used to cost me money. Like download 5.7 gigabytes is not cheap. I mean, it's not free.
Right.
So it costs money. And so if you do it this way, it used to save me money and make it faster for the users.
So how does that work? I mean, I'm not as familiar. I mean, I know the concept sort of, but how come it's cheaper that way?
So Amazon,
They're still loading it, right?
so Amazon, let me describe BitTorrent in a nutshell. What is BitTorrent? What is that? Let's describe that. So if you have a large file, let's call it a large file. So big file. Let's create chunks out of it. That's a simple concept. It's a large file and I'm chunking it, pieces. And there are 3 users. We got users A, B, and C. If each one of them downloads the whole file from Amazon, it's 3 times. Amazon will charge me 3 downloads. Now, if we use torrent method, the first user will probably get the whole thing. And when this guy gets it, he or she can also give.
If he's set up that way, because I mean,
It may not be set up that way,
Right.
yes. But if he or she is, which torrents most of them are, to be able to share peer-to-peer, then parts of this big file will come from Amazon,
parts of the
and parts will come from B and C, and like they'll share among themselves.
Right.
So the download is not coming from Amazon, is not charged to me.
Right.
They're paying the Comcast or the DSL Quest guys are dealing with it.
Yeah. Now years ago we had to shut that down.
Who?
Comcast used to throttle you back, right? They had a limit.
Yeah, now they cannot throttle. Apparently, they lost the battle.
Right.
So they let you.
Right.
So this is a legal use of torrent.
Yeah, we actually got a email from Comcast.
Apologizing?
No, telling me to cease and desist, or they were going to take
Ouch.
the account away. Well, it was actually my son he didn't know that he had set up to be what's terminology when you're a sender of torrent?
Cedar.
Cedar. Yeah, he didn't know this is Cedar. And we hit I don't know what it was back then, 50 gig or something.
Right. So seeding is what Amazon is doing right now. They're seeding. And then the first person to download the whole thing also becomes a seeder.
Right.
And others are, it's a very bad word, called leechers. And so that's the word, apparently technical word,
Yeah.
leeching and seeding. And so when you're not downloading or getting contents or parts of your file from Amazon, you don't have to pay Amazon. That's how you save money.
Got it.
And as long as your content is your own original content or open source content, you can
So-
share.
Kind of, like I said, I have limited exposure to torrent, and I kind of know, don't know where it came from, sort of, but I don't, how does user C know to get it from A and B, you know?
Sorry, how B discovers A and C?
Yeah.
Okay, discovery protocol, there is a DHT protocol, and let's actually see the thing itself. So there are a bunch of, not this, transmission, there are a bunch of protocols defined as to how do you discover. And so let's actually start downloading that file. I don't know if it works here in this building, but let's click. And so I'm using the seed I got to track it and see what happens. So just watch this window. This is my BitTorrent tracker, and I don't think it will work, honestly, because this building is preventing BitTorrent protocol. But it may not work here, but there's a 9 KB file, and it's my own property. It's my picture of my logo. So there's nothing unlawful about it, but it still may not work, which is understood. But now here, if you go and examine the chunks, you see that it doesn't even know the chunks. Otherwise, the chunk layout will become visible here. And here, there are these protocols about tracker. So this method is a announcing tracker. So the tracker itself is set up by Amazon. You see that tracker link? Let's copy that, take it here, and see what we show. So that's the tracker set up by Amazon, again in the same location, US West 2, and is announcing it on that port. So anybody who has the seed knows where the content is. That's one way. If you don't have the tracker, you can still do it. So let's clear it and open and right click this file and open in a text editor. So I'm going to hack that torrent itself, see what comes in. So we'll go open and examine the torrent. And this is what it contains. When you download a torrent seed, that's what this is. So we are opening it up. So opening the torrent seed and examining inside, see what do we have. D8, announce 55, is then tracker ID, and the port number. Then there is an announce list, and one more announce, and some other characteristic that I do not understand. Some reference to a file, which is the file I have. Then the length of the file and some other incomplete, maybe invisible characters here in the file. These are invisible characters. Then there is Amazon bucket. Bucket name is defined as Silverlining in the cloud. And the file again, and some other extra characters. So that's what contained inside the thing that got downloaded when I downloaded the torrent from Amazon. It corresponds to this line number 10, which is the file that I uploaded, which is this image. And so when you put as simple as a question mark torrent at the end of a downloadable button, Amazon S3 automatically becomes a torrent server just by adding this. Any object. That's how they have designed S3 to be. So just you can use torrent as a method of distributing your content. It's by default given to everybody. You don't have to pay extra for it. So that's one concept that I wanted to describe to you. It's not well documented, but it's there. It works. Maybe it is documented. I think Amazon will document it. They'll write about it. And so what else are we missing on S3? Torrenting, downloading. Yeah, one more thing I think I should describe that in S3. That again very subtle, but it's there, and that is coming up. Let's watch it. What's the information and the properties of that file? If you look at this file, it's kind of hard to see here, but I'll show you a different view also. But look at this drop down. It has 3 items here. One of them is the regular storage. The other one is reduced redundancy storage. And the third one is Glacier. So let's make it a little bigger and watch it in Amazon. See if you can see that. Here, here, here. Oh, not here, not here. Not
Like
here.
the CyberDuck app you're using,
Yeah, CyberDuck.
then you plug it in Glacier.
Yes, it can go to Glacier also. No, don't know if it goes Glacier or not. You can move an object from S3 to Glacier, but it doesn't go directly to Glacier. So console and go to S3 and go to our silver lining here and look at this item's properties, and here you will find it a little bigger. And the idea I want to describe is this. It's called storage class. It's a level of service. The standard level of service is extremely good in terms of it is like, I don't know, 11 nines. It's pretty wow. Yes, that's the standard. And the reduced redundancy is somewhat less than 11 nines. Still good. Still pretty down, probably 9 nines. I don't know. You have to check these numbers from what Amazon says, but I roughly remember that's the number. Pretty darn good reliable storage. As opposed to this one called DreamHost. We are implementing OpenStack and using a protocol called the product called Swift. You heard of that before? SWIFT is a component of OpenStack, and it is comparable to the concept that we are discussing, which is S3. Lets you store stuff in buckets, objects in buckets. So the idea here is very similar. You have buckets. I have some buckets here. I have some bucket called Cloud Genius, Nilesh. So I have a Nilesh bucket. Let's go inside the bucket and view, no, not add bucket. Maybe we can add a bucket called silver lining and make the bucket public and add bucket. And here it should let us add silver lining if it is not colliding. If somebody, yeah, see, we got it. We got silver lining because nobody took it yet. And now we can go inside and view objects in that bucket. So in the silver lining bucket, we obviously have nothing. We can upload our objects. The folder is hungry. Crazy people. The folder is hungry. Where is that? Switch bucket and go to silver lining again. And then you can say done, and the folder is hungry. You can feed some objects to the bucket. So the same idea again, except this is OpenStack based. So Dream object uses OpenStack and provides this storage as a service. The reliability is kind of doubtful. Sometimes it doesn't work. I have seen, at least in the last 3 years, 2 times it did not work, which is just bad. Even if it was a small window, but I caught it, that itself is bad. I shouldn't be catching it. So I never put stuff in these buckets because I don't trust them, but that's a service. The same service is also accessible through the Swift protocol, which is a different protocol, but same concept. So you have a Amazon method, S3 method of accessing, and so they will give you programmatic access to access these objects, and Swift will provide their own methods of accessing objects.
Both of these services basically is object storage, right?
Yes, these are object store services. Yes, exactly. And so
storing it directly in the files.
So in Amazon, why would you choose reduce?
save money.
Okay, so they are charges and charges.
Yeah, to save money, yeah, it's slightly cheaper. Let's compare prices. I think prices are already so low that it doesn't even make sense. But yeah, these things started, I think, in 2007 or 9 or something. So it used to be relevant those days, but not anymore.
Yeah. I don't wonder why they still offer it.
We just have it, so why change? So let's see, Amazon
Probably no
S3.
difference actually at all.
Yeah. So reduced redundancy storage pricing. Let's see what we have. So using, yeah, so there is somewhat cheaper. See that the standard storage is like 3 cents per gigabyte,
Yep,
and this is like 2.4. No, is it? 3 cents, and this is like 2.4. Six-tenth of a cent.
Yeah.
0.6. Let's read some availability numbers. Okay, so what do they commit in terms of how many nines? How many nines AWS S3?
I like Glacier was a lot cheaper.
Yeah, Glacier is cheaper, but Glacier is
Cheaper on a larger scale.
the concept of Glacier. It's also a storage service. I'll get back to that, but I think you bring up Glacier. The Glacier concept is
that's all.
like if you are visiting an island, the ticket to go to the island is 0.
Come back.
Yeah, that's where Glacier gets you.
Right.
Oh,
So
so
go
right.
use Glacier.
While you send the
Getting out
data,
there is
while
cheap.
yeah, retrieval is expensive.
Well, that's okay if you're like archiving.
That's the usage.
That's probably.
That's exactly the usage is archival, long-term archival. So I used to store all my pictures, about 300 to 400 gigabytes pictures in AWS S3 until this Google thing happened. So I then moved to Google. So 300 gigabytes is like $3 a month, which was okay for long-term archival. But then to remove that storage was hard. I had to actually write code to remove Glacier. There's no way to delete glaciers. So you cannot go to Amazon S3 here, click and click on Glacier and just right click on the thing and delete. It doesn't work. It's designed to not work. So you have to write code and retrieve a list, empty the items from the bucket list, and then delete programmatically. That's the only way to recover. So there are extensive documentation on what it means to recover, what it means to retrieve, and the retrieval is not instantaneous. They'll make you wait 3.5 to 4.5 hours after you request that they will give you, but it's not, okay, here it is. There's no such thing. That's the stated design point, is that this is like tape archive.
Yeah, they must be putting it off somewhere, right?
I think they're just artificially creating it to be slow. There is no need to be slow because they have probably older machines still running from years and years ago. They just relegate that into, treat them as tape backup, but they're not really tape. Who will manage tape, right? The problem is you need a dude to manage tape.
Yeah, nobody needs it.
Yeah. So people are not using it. Just use hard disk and just charge it artificially like this for retrieval. Include a time like 3 to 4 hours. So you have to request archive and wait for it to become available, and then you access them.
How about writing? Is there a delay on writing?
No. So you write to S3 and ask it to be moved.
So I'm kind of, well, what I'm wondering is if maybe they could actually be pulling power off of these things, right? I mean, that's a possibility.
I don't know what they're doing, honestly.
So this is what I heard, that they have the Nearline, which is as you add stuff to Glacier, it's just JBoss, just like big arrays of disks, and that's where it goes. And then as it ages out, it takes it to Robotic Silo. And the only reason that makes sense to me, because it's not, okay, that's a lot of number, is because of bit rot. If you leave things on a hard drive, you're eventually going to get bit rot, and your data is not going to be accessible. Tape is, for some reason, just much more durable than spinning disks. And the thing about a spinning disk, if you turn it on and you leave it on for 10 years, you come back 10 years later, it's still running. If it has broken, it's good. But when you turn disks on and off to power them on, you kill them. It just reduces their service life significantly.
Yeah.
So that's why I think I've heard some guys who supposedly knew that it was tape. It eventually gets to tape, and that's why it takes sometimes 4 hours or
The problem with
a day.
tape, though, is it has, I this goes way back, you print through with tape. If you leave tape spooled up, it'll actually write from one layer to another. So tape isn't exactly this.
Yeah, tape is also magnetic, and the bit rot applies to tape also.
Yeah.
So the way to overcome that problem is this method of storage that you probably know as ZFS. Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. No, not this box. No, not this ZFS protocol file system. That's what I mean. This one. This is what I mean. Is a very rock solid place to store stuff, and that is this coming up. And I use the ZFS RAID Z2 method. Where is that? RAID Z2.
Anything you do, though, be mechanical,
Yep.
magnetic, even, solid state, nothing's perfect, right?
Correct.
Eventually protons will evaporate and we'll have zero. So, yeah, along the, what is it, everybody's life expectancy reaches zero if the timeline's long enough.
Yeah. That's right.
So if you have such a configuration that I call RAID Z2, then you can have two disks die at the same time, and the volume, their entire volume continues to become available.
Right.
You can actually physically yank out, and still read and write. That works. Beautifully implemented in open source, only on BSD, not on Linux, for some license reason. They have a Linux implementation now,
Yeah,
but not included in the package. So you cannot distribute it.
FreeNAS was doing,
The FreeNAS is BSD.
oh, it is, okay.
FreeNAS is BSD.
The BSD's copy that. Is it not?
I don't remember. I think this is the package available, freenas.org, that I use it. Pretty beautiful. Little ISO file. You basically you have these 6 disks that I described. You put a 7th disk and use that disk maybe as an SSD, small SSD, and you boot that as a boot disk, and rest of it is just storage.
Yeah.
That's the recommended configuration, and then you can do some fancy things like that. You will probably enjoy this. See what I'm doing right now?
Yeah.
Is connecting to my FreeNAS right now, and looking at all my music. I can play it anywhere I go.
Is this from your home? Or
Yeah, it's my
is it
home.
on a high-speed network at a data center.
It is my
super
home.
fast?
It's my home.
What's your connection about? You have like a business connection?
Yes, Comcast
Okay.
Business Class.
Okay.
So it is my home, and yes, all the music, all the movies, and I can play high quality movies, full HD, no problem, just like that. And so you can see this movie. I have a Blu-ray recorded. You can play it just fine. So I was watching apparently. So you can resume from that point onwards, and this is FreeNAS.
Yeah, I saw that Flex Media server. I have Flex here, but
Flex is built in. Flex is built into FreeNAS. Bunch of other things are built into FreeNAS already.
So you just run it on consumer grade hardware.
Yeah. 7-year-old machine.
actually taking my old Windows desktop and making it FreeNAS now.
Beautiful idea. Do that, and make sure your RAM is at least 8 GB.
I got 4 gig on order, so.
Yeah, good. Make it 8 GB, put bunch of disks. But typically you add PCI Express cards, make it SATA,
Yeah.
and get up to 8 ports. Put use one empty, out of these 7 ports that you occupy, give one SSD, and
You can add more disks. If I only start with one.
there's no
disk.
limit. Yeah. So you read about ZFS and how do you grow volumes, but if you want to start, I would suggest starting with like a 6. Disks are cheap.
Yeah, well, I'm really cheap, so I can't afford 6 yet.
Right, but you can get like 1 terabyte 6. And then
It spans the disks.
Yeah.
essentially, Right, yeah. And then the redundancy happens.
yes.
What's the parity cost on it?
The price of this box?
What's the parity cost on across your?
2 out of 6.
What's that?
2 out of 6.
Okay. 30%.
Yeah.
Different size discs in.
Yes, you can mix and match, and you can eventually grow. So like right now, it's all 1 terabyte 6 of them. Next day after Thanksgiving, you bump some of them to 2 terabytes. Next day after Thanksgiving, you go up to 6 terabytes. That way, you can expand as you grow.
For the guy who's counting the costs, that's a $600, close to $600 just for your drives.
Yes,
So
but
priorities.
yeah, but priority is totally. By the way, 1 terabyte is not
Now it's like
not 100. It's
Yeah, you get
30,
that.
40 bucks. On day after Thanksgiving, you get 40 bucks.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I'm saying day after Thanksgiving is the day to buy these things.
So, like I said, I'm putting it together right now. I'm starting that. I got 3/4 of it.
Yeah, start small, play with it.
Are you, Western Digital green drives? or-
WD green, WD red is specifically for NAS.
Yeah, it seems like the red.
Green is okay. Green is, it doesn't even matter. These are mostly marketing things.
I know, that's what I think.
Just red or green doesn't even, they claim red is for NAS. Yeah, warranty they differentiate on, pricing differentiate on, but buy a bundle from Newegg or Amazon on day after Thanksgiving. And that's the way to go. So wait for it next year.
It's like how many years a car battery lives. It's a marketing thing also.
Yeah, unless it is backed up by a guarantee. Like,
All they do is-
I have an 8-year guarantee. Yeah.
That's all it is. So it shorts out in less time.
So I have this guarantee because otherwise I cannot even buy the car.
There was another.
It is this car.
Oh, yeah.
I had one of those just, I mean, by me this morning. Did not realize how fast those were.
They are really fast.
I was, because I actually got rid of the stoplight and it was just gone. Gone.
You can check it out how fast it
It
is.
was just,
You can do that anytime.
wow, nice.
It flies, and that's why this battery is needed. Totally, 8-year guarantee is totally needed. It works, and so yes, batteries. I mean, I haven't been to a gas station for 2 years now. It's amazing. It's amazing. $30. $30 a month. Electric bill. That's it.
And the nice thing about those is they're darn nice cars. There's no compromise, right? That's
So-
not like a Leaf or something that's.
Huh?
Have they used the rumble seats?
Huh?
Have they used the rumble seats? Has anybody ridden in the rumble seats?
What does that mean?
So in the very back of your.
I don't have those. I don't have kids. My son is big.
Okay, so nobody's ridden in the trunk, your trunk, there's seats in your trunk.
You can get
And
them.
then they fix backwards.
Yeah,
But they have
that's-
airbags and everything, so it's supposedly very safe.
Yes.
But I was like, but I was looking at them at the show, I was like, who would ride back there? And the guy was showing me, it's just.
Well, yeah.
Make it a 6-passenger car or something, passenger car or whatever, so. We'll set it.
Mix it a 7, I
Seven.
think. Yeah. So 5 in the front and 2 back.
Yeah, 7.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys do, there's seats in the trunk.
Yeah, I did not know that. Kids.
Yeah, for kids. I think they're pretty darn fancy seats.
I sat in it, so at the show, I went, I sat in the close thing. I would not enjoy a long trip in that seat, but, you know,
But kids actually do enjoy, I hear.
Really?
Yeah. The rear facing is kind of fancy.
Yeah,
And-
I grew up that way, and we rode in a station wagon.
And my dad had international travel all with the one where.
Well, yeah, it's just a throwback, right? So-
Yeah, the old is new again.
Right.
Yeah, we had a Pinto station wagon that was sitting in the very back. More fun to look out the back windows.
Put signs up on the back, help, I'm being kidnapped.
That would be funny. I did not even think of that. That's
Not for long,
awesome.
though.
No.
That's awesome. Yes. So discussing about this one thing that is left, which I think I should also discuss, which is storage gateway. It's a relatively new offer from Amazon. And what they do is integrates on-premises IT environment with cloud storage. Basically give you a disk that sits in the cloud. So you need high-speed connection with them. And then configure your C drive, if you will, for a business system, or your VMs, your virtual machines that you have. You store the machines themselves, the disk associated with these machines in a storage gateway away from you in the cloud. That's this service, relatively new. So you deploy a gateway, you provision your host in your data center, you deploy your VMs on that, and have the storage underneath backed up in the cloud from them. It is a scenario interesting to large companies. May not be for, maybe some medium-sized companies also use it. I don't know. But if you have a gateway direct connection to Amazon, it may be a very interesting thing to make use of. And that's the storage gateway service for large companies. So these guys have these 4 services. S3 you understood. You got the CDN part, which is improving performance of the storage objects, make it worldwide reachable, make it faster. Glacier corresponds to long-term retention and archival, and storage gateway is bringing backed up storage, high-end storage in your premises, on your premises. So this, I think, other companies like Google Storage also provides very comparable services as well. This other thing that had open, DreamHost, not that really nice. It is functionally feature complete, but reliability is questioned. The name is not that well known in the open source community, but they seem to be contributing to OpenStack these days, which is kind of amazing. A small company like them is contributing to OpenStack, which is beautiful. That's what I see.
Your opinion on these companies, do you think that as this matures, it'll shake out, maybe just a few left, or do you think it will be?
It might happen. It is already happening, by the way. So what you see, this big chart here, essentially is, some of it is built in-house, others are acquisitions.
Oh, right.
So it is happening.
Yeah.
And this,
Because it used to be in the VPS market, developers would quit. And this was in early 2000s. Why are you quitting? Oh, I have my own hosting service. Pays for all my bills, and I can just put my feet up and work my own projects and make a really good living doing what Amazon does now. But then Amazon came into the market and just pulled them right out from underneath all those little guys. And they're back now, developers review. But I knew several people who did that, right? And just quit their job and had their own VPS hosting, and they're gone because of it.
I wonder about like even larger companies that just like GoDaddy seem to be being left behind.
yes, I personally do not like GoDaddy, but apart from that, I think the reason I don't like GoDaddy is they try to sell other services and I don't want to receive them. I want what I want and I get just that. But from cloud usage perspective, they don't exist. You don't even count them. Mostly Amazon is big name,
Right.
Google Compute Engine, Google Storage Services. Google has now Docker-based system. And we have Rackspace. We have other companies that play in the OpenStack space. We have Cisco Cloud, HP Cloud, IBM Cloud, Me2 Cloud.
It's kind of, it seems to me it's kind of funny that Amazon ended up being one of the front runners.
They started 2007, and I set up my account in 2009, 2 years late. That was bad. I should have done much before, but I didn't.
How did they get there? I mean, from selling.
I think they saw that they have this ability to scale their infrastructure very nicely on the .com side, and that's what they said. You know what? Let me help you set up target.com. Let me help you set up your .com site on my infrastructure. Come on over. That's what they used to do a long time ago. Target.com was hosted on Amazon.com. Not AWS, Amazon.com, if you remember those. I don't know. And so that's how it started, with this idea that, hey, we already know how to set up our services, and we know it very reliably, scale it up, scale it down. So this concept of scaling out used to be very applicable to Amazon.com during Christmas and day after Thanksgiving, where people will just hit the site and they knew how to scale. And so once they know how to do it, why not give that as a service to somebody? And that's where this idea of infrastructure as a service came along. And I think it was called just EC2. So I remember it was this initially.
Wow.
Elastic Compute Cloud. That was the name. And so now we have a whole host of these things spread out. But on the contrary, if you compare with these guys, you've seen them. They're doing one thing and doing it right. I mean, I love them, the way they are handling it. How simple and elegant the interface is. And the performance is probably twice. So I get this machine, and it is giving me a 4 GB RAM, 2 CPUs, 60 GB SSD, and a 4 TB transfer. Comparable machine on Amazon is M3 Medium. And I run the same exact application and I say, set it up. So I use a DevOps tool called Ansible to set it up. And I have timed it. Run Ansible to set up EDX on DigitalOcean. Run the same exact to run on Amazon. M3 Medium, comparable machines. Amazon takes 2 hours. DigitalOcean finishes in 1 hour. The setup, just the initial setup.
You think they'll survive?
I think they will, because if you look at what these guys are doing, let's see here. See who are loving them. The evidence is very clear. This is John Resig. If you don't know him, he created jQuery. He now works at Khan Academy, Salman Khan. This guy, he created Rails. He contributes to Rails, the Ruby on Rails framework. He's giving them well done, thumbs up. This guy created Redis, another open source database, thumbs up again. Ryan Bates, if you know him or not, but an excellent creator of Rails tutorials, thumbs up. Jeff Atwood, Stack Overflow, co-founder, thumbs up again. And I give my thumbs up to also these guys. They're a beautiful service. Yes. So I think such services will survive. There's no doubt about it. Pricing is rock solid. The capabilities are beautiful. Why not? And they're just doing one thing very nicely, as opposed to a whole lot of things here.
Right.
So it's a different market, but they will
like
survive.
Boeing would probably not go to DigitalOcean, right?
Right.
But would possibly.
Yes. Yeah. Large businesses will go straight here. No doubt.
Or Google, I guess.
Yeah. So
Yeah, IBM.
IBM has their own cloud services now. Yeah. And it kind of sort of sucks.
Yeah.
But we can try that if you like, but I'm not interested.
It's only interesting in that, the history of IBM and
Yes.
they get this and they just can't.
SoftLayer, they got acquisition, right? IBM.
seem to not be able to
It's so,
adapt.
software got bought?
Uh,
Who bought it?
IBM.
Oh, that's right.
And so they have the software.
And then
There's
IBM
nothing.
ruined them.
They are unique stuff like soft players.
At HP too, I just want to hear about.
HP Cloud, I cannot even complete my chef runs, and it fails.
And Intel had something they're supposed to be releasing last year.
Intel?
Yeah, the Intel Cloud.
Huh.
An actual
Really?
cloud software that they built, you could download and as on Intel software, optimized for Intel.
Huh.
But I haven't seen it yet.
Let's see what we have. Intel Cloud. I don't know. I haven't seen much. The picture looks good.
Yeah, I don't think it's on this site. So they had, it was in one of the conferences, they had an announcement that they'd be releasing it soon.
Yep.
But you had a question about DHT, right? I don't know if you had time to answer it all, but as far as BitTorrent and DHT, it's the thing that is like this virtual network. The seed is your agent or your access into the network. So you know your IP, and now you know the seed's IP. And then the seed IP, in this case would be S3 Amazon, knows your IP. If another person connects to that seed, that Amazon now knows that one seed and can pass it to you. And so now you know the seed and the other seeder. So now you're beginning to build this swarm. And as more people connect, and maybe other people connect to this other seeder, and they're just downloading from this other person. And then that seeder can pass that information to Amazon or can pass it back to you. And it's sort of this communication back and forth as you sort of set up this layer of a network on top of another network. And that's the whole DHT sort of, I mean, it's so black magic to me. On how
Yeah, I
it
even have
works.
to dig into this a little bit too, because it is interesting. It's like how are the decisions made on where to get the data,
Brilliant. The guys who put it, I mean, DHT is the brilliance underneath BitTorrent.
So this guy, Bram Cohen, is the creator. And he used to live in Bellevue. He's the creator of BitTorrent protocol. I think he was at Bellevue at some point, if I remember
Sometimes I
right.
care to look into this stuff, and then sometimes I go, well.
Let the magic happen.
Yeah.
Well, let's just use it. So I think the last time I mentioned this implementation of same protocol in a sync fashion, which works out very nicely. A pretty efficient sync.
So
And
it's, your machine has to be, both machines have to be online at the same time.
no. Yes, for sync to happen complete, yes, they have to be alive.
Right, so it's not syncing to a cloud.
There's no cloud. Correct. Yes. They have to be alive at the same
Can you
time.
do they have plugins for NAS?
NAS, yes. Free NAS built in.
Okay.
So yeah, it's all coming together.
I know. Free NAS, they have plugin built in.
You're getting me interested in FreeNAS, and my wife is going to be angry. I'm saying, Nilesh.
Blame it on him.
Because I'm using XBMC and SBMC on some of the
Plex.
tablet devices.
Plex is open source. Plex is totally open source, and free NAS is.
No, you have to pay. The
No.
mobile client for Plex is not.
Yes, you're correct. But I got it for free. Let's put it that way. So
And that's why I went to XBMC, because I have so many kids have devices. My wife, so just XBMC, and you can get to the whole use.
XBMC is also good, no doubt.
But doesn't you? It's not as slick as getting to it from the internet. Although you can enable it, it's just such a headache.
I know. But Plex app, just boom. There you saw the whole thing, right? My entire 2 terabyte library is available anywhere I go, on my phone, on just easy. Do you want to experiment with that thingy, the CloudFront thing? Or let's understand. Let me get up.
And just end up uploading files in there.
Yeah, let's play with it. I think our idea is we have only the time left. Let's play with it some and understand, get something as opposed to I just keep talking. That's not interesting to me.
Okay.
So play with it.
Mobile platform.
Play with it. If you have a domain, map it. You have a domain? I think you might, yeah. Map, create a subdomain like classroom dot whatever, and then associate it with that. Or just be creative and figure out what you have.
You have only so many tabs open.
Yeah.
Oh, you never close them apparently.
Well, it's a bunch of tabs I open to read stuff. Like, read it and then close it.
Oh, I was just going over the SDA stuff as you mentioned. I think, oh, just, have you done much with anything with Ceph?
They have it, it's part of OpenStack extensions,
Right, yeah.
and you probably used it more than I have.
No, we looked at it and we were like, oh, this is super cool, but we couldn't convince anybody to do it. Nobody was, they wanted to make Xenta and people wanted to put down giant stacks of cash with Xenta. Like, okay, how about Swift? No, like Xenta, we'll do Xenta.
Fine. Fine.
I think there was, I forget what the key difference is between Swift and, or the, the differentiated why people were turning down Swift. I think there was just one thing that Xenta did that Swift did not. And who are the guys in town here? They started the startup that does the software-defined storage.
Cumulo.
What?
Cumulo?
Ah, yes. I think it's those guys. Yeah, so they are partnering with Tel to do like this, let's see, 6 or 8 petabyte tray you can put in a rack. I mean, for cheap, super cheap, displacing EMC and all these other people and all the HP storage guys, because the software-defined storage is just, why would you go to one of those guys? It's cheaper, it's better.
Cheaper than just go to SES.
Come on, and then you can, like you're saying, that whole layer of solid state drives sitting on top. So for then, customize your storage to your application.
So more on FreeNAS, you can do add an SSD to cache your reads and cache your writes, copy and write, and so you can further improve performance of.
How big of a performance is that across the wire?
Gigabit in your home. So it looks like local disk. I transmit files 100 Mbps one machine to the other, 100 megabytes.
And you're completely wired in here.
Complete wired. I have some wireless N and wireless AC in my home. For the Macs I have AC. So it's pretty gigabit Wi-Fi. For other machines it is not Wi-Fi gigabit yet, but I have wired Ethernet.
So we went in because the house is not wired. So
Jump to AC. So
well, I have to switch out all the devices.
I know.
Oh.
So I have put AC router, and then this is my home router from my older days. This is the N router that I use in the class. And in home, I put AC. The gigabit router works okay. I mean,
Oh, is AC, okay, is AC backwards compatible, but does it slow it down? So it'll still keep the other AC clients up at what? Is it 600 is the max?
I don't remember. So it's pretty okay. It performs okay.
Until your neighbors start interfering with it. All the same.
They don't exist.
Adjacent shit. Oh,
They don't exist yet. So that's goodness.
oh, that's nice. I bring up my network map here. I have one of those visualizing and it's just covered.
Okay. So you live in a dense spot. I live in the Indian reservation.
Oh, cement. Yeah, okay. Like, what? You're messing with me now. You're pulling my leg.
Indian reservation is like half Indian, half Chinese.
I was working with an Indian guy. He was saying, because he was inviting me over to dinner. We might over to dinner. He says, oh, and I was saying, what about Saturday? What about Saturday? He's like, oh no, I go to church on Saturday. I didn't know you were a Christian. And he's like, no, I go to an Indian temple. I'm like, no way. And he's like, yeah. Oh, I didn't know there were so many here. He said, oh, there's lots of there.
I know. In every city, there's like 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I don't go to temples, but I know that they exist.
Yeah, so I was surprised. So you don't, but then I was driving past one, I was like, oh, there's one right there.
So the work that I think you're trying to do hands-on, I'll give you some ideas to build your static site generator in your virtual machine. Very, very simple. Let's do that. I think it's a worthwhile exercise because it is giving you something very tangible. And that's what I want to do. So what I'm going to do is go to that Octopress site. And you go there with me so you'll understand it. And since I am not going to touch the existing site, I'll create a new one right now with you. So we are going to Octopress, read the documentation. And there are some initial setup steps. And these are built into your virtual machine, I think. You have Ruby, you have Git. So let's clone this. So before you begin, you have Git already in your VM. You have Ruby 2.1.2, I think, which is usable. And install one of the exec.js supported JavaScript runtime, which is, I think you need Node. That's what it means. Let's see what we actually run into. So I'm going to start my virtual machine. And Trusty power on. Full screen mode, okay. So Trusty starting up. And here in the Trusty machine, I will start a terminal session and check if I have Git. I do. Can I check Ruby? I do. And let us clone. The clone instruction was clone from this Git repository. So we'll go there. Like this. Open that website to read it again. And here, we'll clone it by taking the HTTPS link. Copy that. HTTPS. Not the SSH link, but the HTTPS link. We'll take this link from this clipboard, copied, and then go to our terminal, Git, clone, and paste. And this will clone the whole thing locally.
Where was the site?
Octopress on GitHub. And this is a static site generator, meaning it will generate good-looking HTML, CSS, JavaScript for you. And all you need to create is simple text files. They're almost text files. They're markdown files, to be precise. Markdown is a syntax I will show you in just a second as we begin using it. So here it is cloned. And now I need to do some further steps, which are go inside and then bundle and bundle install. Fine. So we'll go here, go inside that Octopress folder, make it big. So I'm going to go inside Octopress. Now I am in that folder. Inside that folder, I will do bundle install. Now, I think this step number one, gem install bundler is probably already done. So you can just check bundle, enter, bundle not found. That means it is not installed. So we'll install gem install bundler, and that will install the bundler gem, which will enable us to run these steps. And then we are ready for using Octopress. So very minimal steps needed here. That bundle thing got installed correctly. And now we should be able to do the other step, which is RBENV rehash. That's the command that they are basically describing. If you are using RBENV, the rehash command will be able to run the bundle command. So here, we are rehashing it. So it now knows that there is a bundle command. We can now clear the screen and run bundle install. This will install Octopress, the download Git clone that we have. It will install and make it ready. Install all the needed gems in form of a bundle, a bundle file. I'll walk you through that detail also. But it is basically looking up all the gems needed to make Octopress run, and then Octopress becomes available to us. So it is pulling down all the gems needed, and something happened. Was there error or no? No errors apparently. Says post install message, fine. So yes, it got succeeded. So now we have to do the RBENV rehash one more time, which basically pulls up all the gems installed, and then you install the default theme. So like WordPress themes, we have Octopress theme default installed. What it did was copied classic theme into the source folder and the SAS folder, created a source file, source folder, copied the theme files into the source folder, created a SAS folder, copied the SAS contents into that SAS folder, created a folder for us to write our blog posts inside source, and created a public folder. This public folder, where the output will go, this will contain the result. This public folder will contain the result. The sources _ post folder is where we will go and write our blog entries. And right now we should have Octopress almost running. So we will go configure, and the idea would be to, how do you run it? Where is that? Blogging, okay. So here, blogging basics, you have to create a new post. So that's the command to create a new post. So we'll create that first post right now. And that post creation happens rake and new post, new _ post. And then you have to put a special backslash because this is ZSH. It doesn't understand square brackets like this. So you have to go like escape character and then give it a name. You cannot use just like this. This instruction is meant for bash shell. The shell we are using here is Z shell. It is slightly different convention. So I'm going to say hello world, or rather hello silver lining, and then close. And this is how I would create a new blank post. And right now I have a new blog post file created. That blog post file got created inside my source post folder with this date and file name .markdown. Let's see that file. We'll go inside source post and ls, and we'll find that there is a file. We'll cat that file, and we'll find that it contains this. And this is what you have, the white entry. This white colored highlight is what a blank template that we now have through a new post create command will modify that file itself. I'll do the whole thing again. Don't worry. So you can just watch me. Or if you want to follow along, it's okay. If you can catch up with me.
I'm scroll up slightly.
Okay, I can go slow. No worries. But I just want to quickly get to the result so you get the picture, and then I'll do it again. We'll do any number of times you want, no problems. So we have this empty file right now. I'm going to edit that file and say, how are you? ? And then save it. Now we have the file created. Now I want to see the results of it. So I can see the results by running it. And so I'll say rake generate, rake preview. So the idea would be to rake generate is generating static content right now and putting that in a folder called public. So the source was source and the destination was public. So if I now see the public folder, I should see my HTML, CSS, JavaScript, which is, where is that Octopress thingy? Here. And then I have a public folder here, and it has this index HTML and everything loaded already. So I can just take this content, the whole folder here, drop it in a bucket, I'm good to go. As simple as that. But I want to see it here locally, so I can say rake preview, and then open up a browser and watch my local host, port 4000. So I'll go localhost, and there it is. See, hello Silver Lining, how are you doing? Archives and everything, like all functional in a simple few steps. I mean, not too complex steps, right? I'll do the whole thing again. I'll flatten the box, begin from beginning. A quick short lesson on Markdown. Markdown is the word. Not markup, like HTML has markup. This is the opposite, Markdown. It is simpler. This was created by this guy, John Gruber. The syntax is fairly simple. Here's how it is. I mean, it's trivially simple. Compose. I'm going to compose an email and send it to Silver Lining. Okay. So this is a message that I write in Markdown. Okay. Here is my message. See how I write. I'll say, what did I do? Kill. Okay, again. I wrote simple, very simple encoded Markdown, and I'm going to convert this Markdown into this. See how it beautifully converted my header, my subheader, my H1 tag, my bullets, and my source code, and whatever I want. Conveniently, I can convert back, modify it, and convert again. There's a plugin for that, and the plugin is available on all browsers, and the plugin is called Markdown here. Markdown here. So it just converts your writing into Markdown and makes it look beautiful. And so this is what is the engine underlying here that Octopress uses, and what we are editing in this bracket. And in that file that I saw, source, where are we? ls, yeah. This file that I edited and I wrote, how are you, was a Markdown file. And this Octopress is a Markdown processing engine, converts it into a good looking whatever you saw. Let's do it again. So I'm going to crash the whole thing. So cd ... cd enter and rm minus rf Octopress. There we go. Gone. Octopress is gone. Begin again. Very simple. Let's look at the history. We did not do much actually. So let's see history. What did we do? Okay, I think we should make it a little smaller. And one more. There we go. So we have this line. We did a git clone. Clone is basically creating clones. Copy, download. Same concept. We'll go into Git detail next time. But in this command, we are downloading the whole thing. Whatever is there on GitHub, bring it down. It comes down as a folder. We put it here. We go inside it. We see what it is. Then we bundle and find that bundle is not installed. So we install it. And then rehash. Clear, bundle install. And this time I'm installing all other gems needed by Octopress using the bundler software. So this line is actually installing all the gems needed, all the packages needed by Octopress using one command. The command itself is the bundle gem, which we installed in this line. So this will install the bundler gem, and then we'll run it to install all other gems. And then rehash one more time to get a listing of all the gems installed. And then we are ready. Then we'll say rake install to install the theme, the default theme. We can construct our own themes. Like in my site you saw, it's a different looking theme because that is not a default theme. The site that you have here in this example is the default theme that gets installed when you run this. Then I create a new post. I call it Hello Silverlining. And if you're not using the Z shell, you can skip the escape character here and here. Sorry, here. You can skip those escape characters. You don't need them in Bash, in the regular shell. In Trusty, we do not have Bash. We have ZSH default. And that's why these slashes or escape characters are needed. Then we go inside the post location where this new post gets created in a folder called source and then underscore post. Then we check out what we have. We just have one file. We cat it. We see it. It is a markdown file in a markdown syntax. We edit that file, and then we are mostly done. So we have to generate the source code for HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then we preview it in a browser. And then we are done. Essentially, the public folder that you see here, where is that? Oh, that is deleted now. But that folder is the container that will contain HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And you take that entire content of that folder and drop it into a bucket, and you're done. So every time you want to create a new post, you say line number 1405, new blog post, rake new, boom. And you have a markdown file created for you. You just edit that file and do a git commit, git push, git deploy, and your site goes live. So rake generate, git commit, git deploy, push, and your site is alive with everything you want. Few steps. Let me email this to you so you have it. This sequence, I think it should be good to go in the notes. So copy and paste. And here is what I will do. I'll write in a triple backtick, tick, tick, tick. See the backticks? Makes it easy to read code. Triple backticks. Backticks are right next our tab. And so if you put that in triple backticks, it is treated as code in Markdown, so it looks beautiful. As opposed to sending it like this, which is ugly. So I'm going to further clean up some of the commands that are not needed, this was not needed. This was not needed. Yeah, and now I'm sending it to you. So here it comes. Okay, you have it. And like this, There are several other open source static site generators. Makes life easy to write beautiful looking sites in few lines and push and get ready and cost you 2 cents for 3 months. Well, if you get audience, like if you get slash dotted or if you get invited on Oprah show, then your bill will become $30, maybe $50, something like that. If people will hit your site like really, really hard, you will probably get a spike in the bill.
Sure, you have to have Google AdSense, right?
Yes, that'll way cover more than $30 if you have AdSense. Yeah, it makes sense. So, by the way, this Markdown thing is very commonly used for documentation. So, any kind of, if you look at the email I sent you, let's see, the email I just sent you looks like this. It's kind of clear looking for you to easy to read. Right? Very easy to understand what was my writing versus what was the code segment I added. So very distinct, very clear. And you can write, fancy write-ups like this. I'll give you some examples.
When you edit the post itself, to add content to the post has to be within the dash.
Now, triple backticks are used only for code. So the Markdown syntax is very simple. It has, the connotations are like this. Let me show you here. So if you put just a single hash, it means in HTML becomes H1. If you put 2, it becomes H2. Put 3, it becomes H3. Like that, it goes on. Then if you have a bullet list, you go like this. If you have an image tag, you want to add an image, you say img, put a name, alt text, and then put the link.
Just found a Markdown cheat sheet.
Oh yes, the cheat sheet. It has everything. I don't need to give you the cheat sheet. You have it. The cheat sheet is beautiful, by the way. Markdown is very short cheat sheet, simple. It's probably comprehensive. And you can write beautiful looking documents in simplest possible method without having to use Microsoft Word. It's plain text. And you can do Git commits and share around. And the key idea that most people on the GitHub will use is all the files that you see. Let's go to GitHub. So GitHub. And here, let's look at just about any repository. Let's say this one. By the way, do you have a GitHub account? If not, create one. And I'll add you to the group so you can get access to private repositories for use in the classroom. So do that. GitHub account is free. Let's see this theme that I created. The documentation that goes along with it at the bottom, all these pictures and the getting started instruction and install instructions, this is all Markdown. If you look at this, whatever you see right now is a part of a file called readme.md. This one. So I click on that file and check out its raw detail. It is this. So you basically write Markdown like this. And you see triple backticks right there. You see more triple backticks here. You see an H2 tag here. And you see more triple backticks and the H2 tag and some picture embedding here. There we go, picture. Right? Cool. So we'll meet again Monday, I think, and continue our Git, and then jump to Heroku and build it on. So have your Heroku accounts ready. Have your Git accounts ready. Heroku, you have it already? Oh, get one. So it takes 2 minutes. Free. No credit card needed. Heroku.com. you need a credit card for certain specific things, but we will not do those things. And even if you put a credit card, they will not charge you because the first machine is, first dyno is free. Even if you do that, even if you give them a credit card, they won't charge you. First dynos are free. So sign up here and sign up on the GitHub as well. So give me your handles when you have them. I can add you. And let me stop my recording. Where is that? Here. And I think